His lips were still wet with wine when they found their way to my neck, and his fingers traced the outline of my thighs like he already knew every part of me. I moaned his name, a name I should not have known in that way, as I grabbed his shirt and pulled him into me. For the first time in months, I felt alive. I felt wanted. I felt seen. But what happened the next morning broke me. A torn envelope was shoved under my bedroom door, no name, just one line scribbled in thick, angry ink. "You will regret ever touching him." It was unsigned. That was the moment I knew. My grief was not the only thing I had to survive. I had just buried my husband. And now my family wanted me gone. Before I begin this deeply personal and painful story, I want to say a massive thank you to everyone who has supported this channel. To my returning viewers, your loyalty fuels every word I write. To the new visitors who are just discovering our space, I see you, and I am so grateful you are here. If you have not subscribed yet, now is the perfect time to do so. Your support is not just appreciated, it is the fuel that powers this channel and keeps these stories coming. Please, hit that subscribe button and do not forget to share your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one of them, and your words matter. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. I am Clara Thompson, a 43-year-old American woman, born and raised in the suburbs of Louisville, Kentucky. I was a wife. Now I am a widow. And nothing could have prepared me for what unfolded after my husband Daniel died. Daniel Thompson was not just a man. He was the kind of presence that filled a room before he even stepped into it. Broad-shouldered, charming, and endlessly generous, he was the type of man who hugged you so tightly you forgot what heartbreak felt like. He was my best friend, and my safest place. We were married for 14 years, and during that time, I accepted everything that came with him, including his teenage daughter, Samantha, from a previous relationship. At first, she welcomed me. But over the years, the smile faded from her eyes whenever she looked at me. Especially after her father and I decided not to have children of our own. And then there was Rita, Daniel's older sister. Cold, elegant, calculating. From the day we met, she treated me like I had taken something that belonged to her. I used to laugh it off, call it petty jealousy. I was wrong. Very wrong. Daniel died in a car accident on a rainy Thursday night. I still remember how the trooper knocked on my door. I remember the wet footprints on my hardwood floor. I remember the way my legs gave out, how I screamed so loud the neighbor's dog began to howl. The funeral was beautiful. That was the last moment I felt safe. Because after the flowers wilted and the casseroles stopped coming, the masks fell off. Suddenly, Samantha was distant. Rita came over less, and when she did, her eyes scanned the house like she was measuring drapes. I would walk into the kitchen and find conversations ending abruptly. They thought I was fragile. That I was broken and too heartbroken to notice. But I noticed everything. 3 weeks after Daniel's burial, I began sorting through his things. I found myself in the garage one evening, digging through a box labeled "Old Stuff, Mark." That was the first time I saw his name in years. Mark Reynolds. Daniel's childhood friend. The one who used to sleep on our couch during college reunions and send us Christmas cards even after he moved to Chicago. We had not spoken since the pandemic. On impulse, I called him. He picked up instantly. His voice was deeper than I remembered, laced with surprise and something else, maybe concern. We talked for hours. Then, days later, he visited. Just for lunch, I told myself. But it was not just lunch. He held me when I cried. He looked at me like I was more than a grieving widow. And one evening, after too many glasses of wine and a playlist Daniel would have hated, Mark kissed me. And I let him. It did not feel wrong. That was what haunted me. It felt like freedom. It felt like I could breathe again. And that night, in the quiet of my bedroom, Mark and I crossed a line we could never uncross. He touched me like I had not been touched in years. His mouth trailed every scar I had tried to hide. He whispered promises I never asked for. For a few hours, I was not Clara the widow. I was just Clara, wanted, touched, and alive. But peace has a price. The very next morning, I found the envelope. No name. No return address. Just that one sentence. You will regret ever touching him. I looked around the room, half expecting someone to jump out from behind the curtains. But no one was there. The house was still, and yet my heartbeat was a drum in my throat. I did not tell Mark. I was not sure I could trust anyone anymore. Later that afternoon, Samantha came home early from class. She had not lived with us full time, but since Daniel's passing, she began coming around more often, always watching me, never smiling. That night, I overheard her whispering in the hallway with Rita. I could not make out every word, but I caught these. She is moving on too fast. We need to protect what is ours. She has no idea about the will. The will? My breath hitched. That was the moment the fog lifted, and I realized I was not just mourning. I was being hunted. In the days that followed, I began to piece things together. Rita started asking about the deed to the house. Samantha began suggesting I sell Daniel's car. And then one morning, I found half of our family photos missing from the living room wall. It was as though they were trying to erase me. Remove me from every piece of his legacy. But the final blow came when I visited Daniel's attorney. He looked confused when I mentioned the will. There is no revised will, he said. Daniel never updated it after you married. Everything goes to you. I walked out of that office in a daze. My head spinning. My stomach churning. So what were they talking about? What were they hiding? And why were they so sure I would be gone soon? That night, Mark returned. He could sense something was off. I wanted to open up to him, to tell him everything. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the whisper of doubt that had taken root in my heart. Maybe it was fear. Or maybe I knew deep down. This was not over. This was only the beginning. And if I did not fight for what Daniel left behind, they would take it all. Even if it meant destroying me to do it. The house no longer felt like mine. I woke up every morning feeling like a guest, a stranger in the same home I had once filled with laughter, candlelight dinners, and anniversary photographs. The air felt colder. The walls seemed thinner. My reflection in the mirror no longer smiled. It watched me, hollow-eyed, waiting for the next crack to split me open. I knew something was coming. But not even my worst nightmares could have prepared me for the betrayal that was already unfolding around me. A few days after receiving that threatening letter, I began searching. I combed through Daniel's desk drawers. I opened every locked box, every storage file tucked beneath our bed. I was looking for answers, something that would explain what Samantha and Rita were planning behind closed doors. And then I found it. A manila folder marked in faint black ink. Estate Planning, 2009. Inside was an older version of Daniel's will, the one written years before we married. At the time, he had left everything to Samantha and Rita. But next to it, paper-clipped with a fading post-it note, was an unsigned draft, marked for review. It was addressed to me. Everything. The house, the life insurance, the shares in his father's construction business, had been reallocated to me as his legal spouse. But the document was never officially filed. And I had no idea why. Had he planned to update it? Did he forget? Or did someone make sure it never saw daylight? The next morning, Mark stopped by again. He brought bagels and orange juice, and we sat on the porch like old friends trying to make peace with broken mornings. I could not tell him everything. Not yet. But I did tell him enough, about the letter, about the folder, about the change in Rita and Samantha. He tensed. I saw it in his jawline. Something in his face shifted. Clara, he said slowly, I think you need to be careful around Rita. She has always been ambitious. I wanted to ask what he meant by that, but before I could, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, muttered something about work, and stood up so quickly he knocked over the orange juice. He apologized, kissed my forehead, and left. But the way he left felt off, like a man carrying a secret he had no business holding. That evening, I made a decision. If Rita and Samantha were hiding something, I would find it. I waited until both of them left the house. Samantha said she was meeting a friend for dinner, and Rita had gone to a charity event. I knew their routines. I had become a prisoner in my own home, after all. So I used that time to search Rita's bedroom. I hated myself for doing it. But desperation kills dignity. And I was desperate. I found a notebook in her luggage. On the 3rd page, there was a checklist. Schedule second appraisal for house. Call Michael about sale listing. Transfer funds from DT Trust. Keep Clara distracted. Delete texts with Mark. Push narrative of her mental breakdown. Locate final will copy. I froze. Delete texts with Mark. I read the line again and again. My throat dried. My hands trembled. Mark and Rita. Everything blurred in that moment. I sat on the edge of her bed, struggling to breathe, my heart pounding so loudly I thought it might rupture through my chest. The man who held me when I wept. The man who had been in my bed. In my body. In my heart. He had been talking to her. Plotting? Was that what last night's odd exit was about? I took a photo of the page, slipped the notebook back exactly how I found it, and left the room, dragging behind me a growing scream that never made it out of my mouth. The next day, I stayed in bed. I did not eat. I did not return Mark's calls. I felt paralyzed. Like the walls were collapsing and I had no strength left to brace them. But then something happened that pushed me beyond the edge of silence. A sheriff's deputy knocked on my door. He handed me a formal letter. Notice of mental health evaluation request. Filed by Rita Thompson. Signed by Samantha. They had claimed I was unstable, possibly dangerous, and unable to manage my husband's estate. The document described erratic behavior, delusions, and even referenced my inappropriate relationship with an unnamed male, no doubt, Mark. It was not just betrayal. It was war. I hired a lawyer the same afternoon. Her name was Miriam Glass, and she was everything I needed in that moment. A divorcee, sharp as a razor, and fiercely protective of women like me. She reviewed everything, the unsigned will, the notebook photo, the mental evaluation notice. You are not crazy, she said firmly. You are being cornered. But I promise you this, we will fight. She filed a motion to delay the evaluation and requested court access to Daniel's financial files. We were determined to find proof that the original will was tampered with or intentionally withheld. But the price of resistance came quickly. That night, I came home to find my clothes thrown out of the closet. A suitcase sat by the front door. Rita stood there with Samantha, both of them pale with performative pity. You need rest, Clara, Rita said, her voice cool. We are trying to help you. Samantha added, Daddy would want you safe. You are just not yourself anymore. I laughed. I actually laughed. You two want me gone so you can carve up Daniel's legacy. Do not pretend it is about love. Rita's face twitched. Samantha turned away. I am not leaving, I said calmly. Not without a court order. And not without exposing what you have both done. Then I turned and walked upstairs. My body was shaking, but not from fear. From rage. Later that night, as I lay awake, my phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. They are lying to you. Meet me. Tomorrow. 9 p.m. The motel off Oak Ridge. Room 212. There was no name. No explanation. I stared at the message for hours. My gut twisted with warning, but also with hope. Was it Mark? Was it someone else? Had someone finally decided to tell the truth? As I closed my eyes, one thing was clear. I was done mourning. I was done trusting. Now, I would uncover every secret they buried with my husband. And if Mark had betrayed me, I would bury him too. I arrived at the motel 20 minutes early. Room 212 sat under a flickering light, tucked at the far end of a narrow corridor that smelled like bleach and cheap beer. My palms were sweating. My heart would not settle. I had no idea what I was walking into. I carried a small knife in my purse. I told myself it was just in case, but deep down, I had already accepted that tonight might change everything, for better or worse. At exactly 9 p.m., the door opened. And there he was. Mark. He looked tired. Hollow. His usual confident charm had been replaced by something I had never seen in him before, shame. I am sorry, he said the moment the door closed behind me. I did not sit. I did not speak. He dropped into the chair and rubbed his face like he was scrubbing away guilt. Then he told me everything. The truth was worse than I imagined. Rita had reached out to him a few months before Daniel's death. She claimed Daniel was worried about me, that I was drinking too much, withdrawing, struggling with paranoia. She asked Mark to check in on me, spend time with me, and keep her updated. He agreed. But the night Daniel died, something changed. Rita became cold, calculated. She stopped pretending to care. Instead, she pushed Mark to get closer to me, and feed her information that would help her build a legal case for mental incompetence. At first, Mark went along with it. But then something happened. He fell for me. He confessed it slowly, painfully, like someone digging glass out of their skin. I thought I was just playing a part, he said. But then I saw how broken you were. How alone. And I hated myself for being part of it. I sat in silence, trying to steady my breath. You slept with me while reporting to her? I asked. He nodded. I stopped the day I kissed you. I told Rita I was done. She threatened to ruin me. Said she would destroy my business. That she would tell everyone I seduced my dead best friend's wife. I did not cry. I did not scream. I stood up, whispered, "Thank you for finally telling me," and walked out. That night, everything clicked. All the half-truths. The whispers. The forced kindness. They were building a world around me where I would seem unstable, unfit. And they almost succeeded. But now I had the missing piece. Mark was willing to testify. He had emails, voice recordings, even screenshots of texts from Rita. He forwarded all of it to my lawyer the next morning. Miriam built the case like a fortress. She filed a lawsuit against Rita and Samantha for defamation, fraud, and attempted estate theft. She subpoenaed financial documents that showed Rita had already begun selling off Daniel's business assets. Illegally. But it did not stop there. While reviewing the trust records, we discovered something else, something explosive. Daniel's car accident was not just an accident. A private investigator Miriam hired found out Daniel's brakes had been tampered with. Police had ruled it out due to lack of evidence, but the mechanic's report revealed abnormalities that were never followed up on. The night before he died, Daniel had texted his lawyer. "We need to file the new will tomorrow. No more delays. I want Clara protected." That message never made it into the investigation. Because the phone disappeared in the crash. And now we knew why. We submitted the findings to the district attorney. An investigation was launched. I was never able to prove who sabotaged the brakes, but with the other evidence stacked against Rita and Samantha, the legal tide had already shifted in my favor. Court day arrived. The courtroom was packed. I sat on the right with Miriam. Rita sat on the left, poised like a woman who still believed she could bend the world to her will. Samantha refused to look at me. Mark sat behind me. When Miriam presented the emails and recordings, Gasps echoed across the room. The judge's eyes narrowed. By the time the financial records were exposed, Rita's lawyer asked for a recess. But it was too late. The judge ruled that the estate belonged solely to me. He froze all accounts that had been tampered with and ordered Rita to pay restitution, over $700,000. Samantha broke down in tears. Rita stood there, lips tight, hands shaking, stripped of all her power. After the ruling, I left the courtroom without looking back. I had spent too long carrying other people's sins. Now I wanted peace. Weeks passed. The house was mine again, legally, emotionally, spiritually. I repainted the walls. I burned old sheets. I kept one photo of Daniel on the mantel and packed away the rest. Then one day, Mark returned. He came with no expectations, no apologies left to give. "I am not asking for another chance," he said. "But if you ever want someone who knows your darkness and still chooses you, I will be here." I did not answer him that day. I needed time. Space. But the door was not closed. Because love, even when twisted, has a way of surviving storms. Today, I sit here with more than just victory. I sit with clarity. Daniel loved me. He tried to protect me, even with his final breath. His death should have destroyed me. Instead, it awakened me. Rita and Samantha wanted me gone. They wanted me erased, forgotten, used. But I fought back. And now they live with the ashes of everything they tried to steal.